What is up, my beautiful people? Can you believe that another entire week has already gone by? And it's been a pretty chaotic one, too. Donald Trump has implemented 25% tariffs on our biggest trading partners, Canada and Mexico. Then he decided he was going to pause some for the auto industry. Oh, and then he decided he was going to pause some for Mexico. It's just been chaos. And of course, because another week has gone by, it is time for the Weekly Roundup. Now, for those of you that don't know, this is a new segment that I started last week, and because I am a solo creator that does not have all of the time in the world to cover every single story that I want to cover, I, at the end of the week, gather up a compilation of clips, and then we go over them together. I provide some preliminary commentary on these clips and see whether or not you guys have any interest in following any of these clips up into a bigger story. So if you guys do have any feedback for me, if you guys do like a particular topic that we go over today, do let me know in the comments. But without further ado, let's go ahead and kick things off with Chris Murphy talking about one of his regrets.
Was with the National Security Advisor when they asked Zelensky to leave the White House after that blow-up, and he has been very supportive of what happened in that meeting. You voted to approve his nomination to be Secretary of State. You still think you made the right choice?
Nope, it was a mistake. It was a mistake. I think a lot of us thought that Marco Rubio was going to stand up to Donald Trump on an issue like this, that when Donald Trump decided to align America with dictatorships, again, in order to make it easier for him to steal from the American people, to turn America into an illiberal democracy in which, just like Russia, the oligarchs, the economically powerful people in America rule and the rest of us just feed the powerful. I thought when Donald Trump decided to do that, when Donald Trump would come to him and say, help me move America closer to Russia and to Russian values, Marco Rubio would stand up to him.
So I've got a couple things to say about this. First off, I think I give mad respect to anybody who is willing to come out and say, yo, I made a mistake. We do not have politicians that come out and do this very often. So I applaud Murphy for coming out and saying, yes, I made a mistake. I made the wrong choice. I own up to it. I think we need more politicians like this. Chris Murphy has been one of the real fighters in this new Trump administration, and I just have more respect for him now that he's able to own up to these mistakes. People should be willing to own up to their mistakes and realize when they got something wrong. So I have mad respect for Chris Murphy here, and I can also understand the calculus that he made. I think many of us thought that Marco Rubio was one of the more normal picks that Donald Trump selected. We thought that maybe because Rubio has been pretty hawkish on foreign policy that he might be good in the State Department. But it turns out we got just the exact opposite. Instead, he has bent the knee to Donald Trump. He is going along with all of this insanity, berating Zelensky as he sits there slumped on the couch as his soul leaves his body. So yeah, it has been quite a wild turn for Rubio to make. He's been hawkish on foreign policy, but now he is just stepping in line and aligning with Putin, which is just totally out of left field for somebody like Rubio. So I think it's good that Chris Murphy came out and admitted he made a mistake. I think many of us made that same mistake. I think we all kind of evaluated Marco Rubio as a normal one, and that just didn't turn out to be the case. Let's go ahead and move on to this new thing. Maybe it's not new, but check out how Mike Johnson is responding to some pushback on the whole waste, fraud, and abuse idea.
It's worth noting the Social Security Administration's internal watchdog found that less than 1% of benefit payments were improper. I do want to get to my final question, though, which is about the shutdown.
Don't believe it. Hey, don't believe it.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well.
So I have seen this quite a bit more from the Republicans. They're doing the la 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 strategy, where they hear nothing, they see nothing, and they just pretend that nothing is wrong. They pretend like their constituents aren't pissed off, and instead they just cancel their town halls instead. But like I said, this is something I've noticed that they are doing a little bit more recently. They're just saying, oh, well, no, you can't believe that. Don't believe your eyes. Nope, you can't believe that. Look, The Social Security Administration is incredibly efficient. As she pointed out there, the error rate or the improper payment rate is less than 1%. And they pay 71 million people, I believe, and they pay out trillions of dollars. That is incredible. I don't think people really understand just how incredible that is. Less than 1% of improper payment rate, and most of those improper payments end up being like overpayments that then get corrected on the next payment that goes out. And we have these offices, like the government accountability offices, we have inspectors general that look into this type of fraud and look at how we can try to bring these error rates down. But Mike Johnson said, nah, you can't believe any of that. You got to believe Daddy Trump because he's trying to sell this narrative of waste, fraud, and abuse being a wide-scale problem in the Social Security Administration. These people are lying to you. They are pathetic. They are not living in reality. And instead, they are living in that MAGA reality bubble that we have talked about at length on this channel. Let's go ahead and move on to this next video because I have seen this guy now a couple times. I think his name is Tom Malinowski, and I've been liking what he said. He is straight to the point. He is a good rhetorician, and I've seen him a couple times. And let's go ahead and listen to him talk about Ukraine and Trump's ego.
Well, first of all, on the mineral deal, Zelensky came to sign the mineral deal.
He did.
And since the Oval Office meeting, he has repeatedly said, I'm ready to sign the mineral deal. It's Trump who's not signing the mineral deal because what he really wants is to have his ego stroked. He wants Zelensky to write 100 times on a blackboard, Donald Trump is the greatest leader in the history of the world, and he's always right, wearing a MAGA hat. Because this is the way he operates on issue after issue after issue. He wants, his fragile ego is more important right now than the national security of the United States. And this goes way beyond Ukraine. It's much more important than just Ukraine. This same problem is why top Republicans aren't willing to tell Donald Trump that these tariffs that he just imposed are going to tank the U.S. economy. It's why we're going to be paying more than $9,000 more for a pickup truck in 2 or 3 months if he doesn't back down from these tariffs, because no one is allowed to contradict the President of the United States. Zelensky's not allowed to do it. Republicans in Congress aren't allowed to do it. We all have to say, yes, sir, you're right. 2 + 2 is 5, sir, if you say so, sir.
Now, this is just so true. And we were warning about this before Trump got elected. We said that he was going to fill up his cabinet with a whole bunch of yes men, a whole bunch of sycophants, and that we weren't going to have any of those checks that we enjoyed in his first administration because he is surrounding himself with all of these people who have bent the knee, who praise him like he's some sort of god, and they don't want to in any way contradict Donald Trump because he is such a fragile little man baby. And this is exactly how he was treating Zelensky in the Oval Office when him and J.D. Vance went on the attack against him. That's exactly what they wanted. They wanted him to get down on bended knee and say, yes, Daddy Trump, you are right, Trump. I praise you. That's exactly the type of treatment that Zelensky got in the Oval Office. And for Donald Trump to be putting his fragile little boy ego above the national security of our country, I find absolutely despicable. But I think Tom Malinowski is on the money here. Donald Trump is a fragile man. He is a pathetic man-child, and he has surrounded himself with a whole bunch of people who aren't going to push back on him in the slightest, even if it's going to wreck the economy, it's going to hurt the American people, and it is quite disgusting. Let's go ahead and move on to the Secretary of Agriculture talking about chickens, y'all.
Part of the solution, more small farms, because when avian flu hits and you have these giant industrial farms and these chickens, which I don't think the eggs are as good anyway, is part of it just investing in smaller farms, encouraging that?
I think the silver lining in all of this is how do we, in our backyards, we've got chickens too in our backyard, how do we solve for something like this? And people are sort of looking around thinking, wow, well, maybe I could get a chicken in my backyard, and it's awesome.
Oh, these people are so pathetic. This person is in our government, and she's suggesting that the American people, well, they can just go get a couple chickens so they don't have to pay exorbitant prices for eggs. I mean, this is just such an absurd thing to say. Not only do millions of Americans live inside apartment buildings that do not have access to a backyard or a side yard or a front yard, but we also have suburbs that are just crammed so tight that don't have a whole lot of yard space. But even more than that, they probably live in some sort of homeowners association that would in no way allow them to have live chickens. I mean, this is just an absurd thing to say, and these are the people who are running our government. It is just pure incompetence. Instead of trying to address the problem, instead of trying to warn the American people that egg prices might continue to climb because the Trump administration is kind of pretending like bird flu doesn't exist, well, we get this instead. Why don't you go buy your own chickens? And do these people think that the bird flu doesn't exist out in the wild? Maybe you might be a little bit at less risk for maybe your own chicken flock of getting bird flu, but I mean, how do they think all this stuff works? And these are the people in our government. I find it absolutely laughable. This is the Secretary of Agriculture, and she's saying, go buy some chickens so you don't have to pay so much for eggs. Absolutely incredible to me. Let's go ahead and move on to Jasmine Crockett talking about how the country got hoodwinked.
Towers, what do you say to voters who voted for Trump because they thought he would lower prices, and now they've only gotten trade wars and the alienation of allies?
This is what I say. I say you got hoodwinked, and that's okay. That's okay, because as I was just telling somebody just a minute ago, I have dated in my life. I know they've been talking about whether or not I'm married and all this other stuff. I'm not married, never married, okay? Just want to get that out there. But I have dated. And I will say, any of us that have ever dated, we've been hoodwinked a time or two. Where we done sat there and we thought that he was going to be so great for us because he sold us on all the things, or her, okay? And then we realized they ain't shit. That's where we are. And that's okay. What matters is that you wake up and you say, this is not the one for me. So even if you voted for him, what you should be doing right now is saying, he is not the one for me.
I really love Jasmine Crockett. I think she is fantastic. And as we went over this week, like Alyssa Slotkin gave the response to the State of the Union address. And as we talked about in that video, she was talking about all of the things that are important to the American people, but there was just not that emotional resonance that you need to deliver these messages. And Jasmine Crockett, on the other hand, she delivers information and rhetoric in a type of way that makes people want to perk up and listen. And she is one of the few who are in Congress fighting back against this Trump administration in an aggressive way. I think people like Jasmine Crockett need to be the leaders of the Democratic Party, because what we have seen so far has been completely lackluster. We've got people waving their canes in front of buildings, and it's just coming off as out of touch. These people have been caught flat-footed, and we are not in a time where we can just go and start working on common issues with the Republicans. That is not the moment we are in. And people like Jasmine Crockett, I think, understand that. People like AOC and Chris Murphy, they understand this, and they are upping their game to try to meet the moment. So I think we should put more pressure on the Democratic Party in any way that we can to elevate people like Jasmine Crockett, because when she speaks, when she talks about the issues, when she brings the facts, people want to listen to her. And that is important. She is a good messenger. She is a good rhetorician. She speaks with authority and emotion that people can latch onto. And that is what the American people are craving right now. We are done with this old-timey Democratic Party who wants to give the Democrats a hard time for making a fuss at the State of the Union address. I mean, it's just all pretty wild, the moment we are currently living in. But I think we should elevate voices like Jasmine Crockett, because I do think she's an effective communicator. So these were the few clips that I had rounded up throughout the week to do our second installment of the Weekly Roundup. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you liked any of these particular clips, if you think I should do something a little bit different, be sure to let me know in the comments. I am down and open to suggestions. If you think I should do different types of themes throughout the weeks or whatever it may be, let me know in the comments, and I will see if it makes sense to implement some of those changes as we move forward. As I said before, I am a solo creator that just doesn't have a whole lot of time to cover every single story that I want to cover, and I thought this was a good way to kind of bring clips together. We can do some, at least have a little bit of fun, do a little bit of preliminary analysis on these things, and just have a little bit of fun with it. So, you know, I don't think, before I got into content creation, I thought that, you know, I'd watch people like David Pakman or Brian Tyler Cohen, and I'd be like, oh, that looks pretty simple. But boy, was I wrong. And boy, do I have so much more respect for all of these different content creators who have been on the grind, because putting these stories together and putting them together in a way that is coherent and that is going to have emotional resonance with the audience, people are going to want to listen to them. It takes a ton of time. And being a solo creator, I just don't have enough time to cover all the stories that I want to. So I thought this was a good way for us to do the weekly roundup. We can go over little bits and pieces here that I found exciting throughout the week. So I do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions for me, do feel free to drop it in the comments, and I will try to see how we can implement those things in the future. But I will leave it there for now, guys. This has been the second installment of the Weekly Roundup, and I do hope that you enjoyed. So if you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. Like I said, we've got to build something here on the left that can adequately push back against this right-wing media ecosystem that is just eating up all of the space in our information markets right now. So if you do appreciate what I do here, please do remember to hit that subscribe button. It is free. If you guys want to see how the new Republican strategy is to just claim that all of these town halls are filled with paid protesters, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.